This is Richard Malone from CNX. In this video, I'm going to show you how to create the Warehouse Dashboard Nitro app, which is included as an example app in Valence. And this is going to be a long one, so I'm going to just dive right in and show you what the finished product will look like. So let's click the Warehouse Dashboard here. Okay, so this is intended to be a hypothetical warehouse dashboard where we have the main list shows upcoming shipments. So these are shipments intended to be sort of next up to go out the door. And then we have some indicators or charts over here that show on-time late orders. So this would be orders that have already shipped, and this will be telling us how many were late, how many were on time, how many were early. And I can click on one of these pie segments, for example, and see the actual orders that make up the late orders. And that works the same with the other pie segments. And I have current inventory values for, this is broken down by product class, so components, hardware, etc. So I click on one of these, I can see some additional detail about how the inventory values have changed over the current year versus the previous year. So that's pretty cool. I can go back. And on this main list here, I can click on one of these rows and see actual order line item detail behind each of these orders that are waiting to go out. And the last thing I'll show you about this is I can click this menu here and also jump into order entry. So Valence includes a Nitro app for simple order entry, and this is a demonstration of how you can sort of jump from one Nitro app to another. And so if I click this, it will open the simple order entry, and there's the order, and I can click on it and go into the line items and add lines and so forth. And then if I close this, I'll just go back to the warehouse dashboard. So the simple order entry is beyond the scope of this video, but I will show you how you can create this link to another app. Okay, so again, this is going to be a big one. There are 6 total data sources and 6 widgets in this and something like 8 or more behaviors. So let me just jump right over to Nitro App Builder, and we'll start with that main grid showing all of the orders waiting to go out, the upcoming shipments. So I'm starting with a blank slate here, but I just wanted to point out if I click Show Examples, you can see the components for all the example apps that are included with Valence. And it's easiest to see if I go into this app section. This would be the Warehouse Dashboard. You can see if I open that up, there's the 6 different widgets, and if I open it up further, each one has its own data source in this case. So let me close back down these examples so we have a nice clean slate to look at here. Go back to data sources, and we'll start just by adding our first data source for upcoming shipments. In order to get all the columns I need for this grid, I need to use 3 different files. So the first one is demo ord h, that's an order header file. And then we're also going to need the value and the line item details to get the price and the quantity and so forth. So that's going to be in demo ord d. And then we need a customer master for the customer name and a few other things maybe. So I'm going to do demo cmast, which is the customer master. All right, so there's the 3 files that we're going to use. Now I'll go to file joins. And first, we're going to join these 2 files to the order header file. So for the detail file, those are joined by the order number. So order number to order number, there's the join relationship there. And for the customer master, we're joining that by the customer number. So customer number to customer number, and there's that relationship. Okay, now we'll go on to choosing the columns that we need. So the first column I'm going to add is a calculated column because I need to have the value of the order line items, but that particular field is not stored directly in the file. I need to calculate that by doing the price times the quantity. So we'll do add a calculation field, and we'll just call it value. And it's going to be the sum of, let me search for the fields I need here, sum of the price times the quantity. Okay. And also, I think I want to round this to 0 decimal places. For this dashboard situation, I don't really need the pennies. So we're just going to round that to the nearest whole dollar. And that looks good, so I'll save that. So that's my first column. And then other columns I need directly are the count, because I want to count the number of rows. That would be the number of line items on the order. And then I want the customer name. Okay, so customer name. And now I have to go down to the header. And I want the order number, the status, the city, and the scheduled ship date. Okay. So that will mimic the list of upcoming shipments in the warehouse dashboard for that data. Okay. So now we'll move on to filters. And so since this list is for only upcoming shipments, I don't want to include records in this data source for orders that have already shipped. So we're going to add a filter based on the status. So here's a filter by status. And what's the criteria? The criteria is going to be where status is not equal to shipped. Now, in your files, there may be like a code number or something that you would use, but in these simple files that we include with Valence, it's just a word in the field called ship. So where that status is not equal to shipped, we assume that order is still waiting to go out the door. So we'll add that filter relationship. And if I go to group by, because I selected account, this is like building an SQL statement, because I included account, it's including the other fields or columns in the group by. That looks good, so I want to keep that. And now if I go to order by, it makes the most sense to me to order by the scheduled ship date. So the orders are listed in the date they're supposed to be scheduled to ship. And then within that, we can sort by anything we want. In this case, I'll just put order number. So within the scheduled order date, then it'll be listed as a secondary will be the order number. All right, let's take a look at the preview of that data. And that looks good to me. So we'll just go on and save that. And we're going to call this upcoming shipments. And I'm going to just tag this with video. And we'll save that. All right, so now I'm just going to go right on to create the widget, which is a grid widget. And I'll select all of the columns. And now I'll go and set some of the alignments here. I might raise this preview up a little bit as I do this just to see what it looks like. Well, actually, before I do that, I think I'm going to reorder these columns. These are not the order in which I want to show the columns from left to right. The first thing it makes sense to show is probably the scheduled date. So you can use drag and drop to just drag the ordering of these. So now my first one is the scheduled date. You'll see it'll shift down here. So let me just verify this again. So we got scheduled date, order number, the customer name, the status, the ship to city, which is the destination, the count of line items, and then the value. Okay, that looks good. So now let's take a look at the alignments of those. Schedule date, I want to center. I want to center the order number. Customer name, left justified is good. The status, we can center. Destination, we can leave left justified. And this value, it makes the most sense to leave that right justified. Okay, that looks good. Now let's take a look at our column headers. Some of these need some work. Like this one is too long. But scheduled ship date is nice, but here's a trick for you. You can put a BR tag in there, and that'll break the line and make it go to 2 lines. And you'll see that update there. That sometimes is a really helpful tip to get a long title into a column heading. Okay, so we'll do the same thing with the order number, just so that it fits better. And then value, we can clarify that's the order value. Okay, and it doesn't, since this is a calculated field, it's getting too much width there, so we'll just sort of, let's shorten that down to a 1.5, and let's see what that looks like. All right, that looks good. Now, for column formatting, I'm going to put, let's see, for the status, I'm going to put a color rule here, just so we can make it red when the order is on hold. And so we'll add the rule. And so where status equals to on hold, let's add that rule there. That's the rule. And what do we want to do for coloring? Well, we want the text to be red. So we'll save that. So this is what a sample of what it'll look like. So when the status is on hold, it'll be red. All right. And now you'll get a little dot over here to indicate that you have a color rule in there. The other thing we'll do is I'll show you how to add more than one rule for a field here. So when the value, it's going to add a rule. When the value is greater than 200,000, we are going to make the background this pinkish color. All right. And then we'll add another rule to say if the value is greater than 100,000, you can make these whatever you want. What I'm doing here doesn't make much sense logically in terms of the rules, but this is just a sort of a sample of how you would do multiple rules. And so we'll say that the text for anything that's over 100,000 is this green color. And we'll save that. So this is how you would do two different rules. So if it's over 200,000, it's going to look like this. If it's over 100,000, it's going to look like this. You can make the rules whatever you want for yours. And so now we have the two dots there to indicate that there's two color rules. The last thing I'm going to do here is the order value. I think I'm going to format this to look like currency. So I can click this little cogwheel here on the value. And we don't want to show decimal places, so we're just going to choose the whole number setting here, and before the formatting we're going to put this $sign, and we should see that show up here. Perfect. All right, now we'll go into the configuration of this component. So first thing we're going to look at is the UI options here. So we're going to put a title on the top of this widget. We'll call it upcoming shipments. That will let the user resize columns and move columns around. That's always convenient. And that's all we're going to change there, I think. Oh no, there's one more thing. So in this grid, we could have a lot of rows, and you see each row has a pretty big height. So each row is taking up a lot of space. You can change the UI to the slim view, and watch what happens to the grid over here. The rows will sort of slim up a little bit, and we can get more rows on the screen. That can be helpful. And the next section for paging, I think I'm going to increase the paging size to 100. In the search options, we'll activate the search, and we'll do a search by column. So if I just activate the search as is, it's sort of a global search. But if I turn it on by column, then that allows me to search on individual columns like this, and I can filter in each individual column independently. For the data, I'm going to activate the downloads to allow the user to download this, and the file name, I'll just call it upcoming shipments. That looks good for this widget, so I'm going to save this, and we'll tag that as a video. Save that. All right, so this is our first data sourcing widget, and at this point I'm going to go in and create the app to put this in. I like to do these things in phases to make sure they're working between each phase. So I'll add, and it's asking me for the first widget I want to include. Well, we only have one widget so far, so I'm going to choose that one. Now that is on our canvas. So the only thing I'm going to do here is just add a title for the app bar, and we'll call it Warehouse Dashboard. That's the title of the app, and I'll save it. So the application name is Warehouse Dashboard, and it's taking that from the title that I put. If you didn't put a title here, it would ask you to give it a name. And these are just some of the other portal options. I'm just going to save this. And we'll go right back to the Launchpad and see if our new app is there. And yes, here it is. Warehouse Dashboard. Let's launch it and make sure it's working at this point. So here's our upcoming shipments, and this looks exactly how I expected. You can see some of our formatting options here depending on the numbers and the status. That seems to be coming through just fine. We have a download option to download this to Excel. Okay, so now we'll go back to Nitro App Builder, and we're going to add a couple of the couple chart widgets that are showing up on the left here, the pie widget and the column chart. All right, so let's look at the next elements we're going to add to the app. So if we go back to the completed app, we can see we have the on-time performance pie chart and the current inventory values column chart. So let's work on adding those now. I'll start by adding a data source. And in this case, I'm not going to use the wizard to create the data source. I'm going to go right to entering a free-form SQL statement. This one's a little too complicated for the wizard. And I already have the SQL statements pre-prepared here. So you can see it's a little complex. The result of it is easy. So I'll paste it all in here, and I'll go right to the preview so you can see what the result is. So this is exactly the data that you see in our pie chart. This is the total number of orders that are early, total number that are late, total number that are on time. So all of this, returns that, which is a great format for the pie chart. So I'll save that. And we'll go and create the pie chart widget right on top of that right now. So the data field is going to be the total, and the label field will be the result. And in the UI section, I'm just going to give it a title of on-time performance, and I'll add a donut effect. and some padding around the outside. And the only other thing that I'm going to do in here is I'm going to change this color of the on-time pie segment, because it would be better to have a green color for on-time. It doesn't really make much sense. These colors are just being chosen randomly by the component. So if we go into custom formatting, I can do a little bit of JavaScript code here to force that on-time segment to be green. And I'll do that by starting with this example. I'll paste that in here. And this field here is an object called rec. That's the record. That's the record of information going into the pie segment. And I can get any particular field from that record by doing well, I want to get a field, I want to get the result from that, the result field. That was one of the fields from our data source. So we can get that by doing rec.get, and we're going to get the field called result. Okay? So in the JavaScript now, result will equal that whether it's on time or late or early. So now we can test for that down here. We can say if, we don't need this, we can say if the result is equal to on time, then we can return this color. And I know this color is the green from down here. I can see the code matches up. And I'm going to take this out for now. So there we go. If the result is equal to on time, it's going to be green. So if we go back to configure, we can see this is going to show us now, yes, it's green. Now these other colors I could test for as well and give, I could give like the late ones, the red, and early a different color, by just doing else if result equals and so forth. But you can try that on your own if you want. This single one is good enough to show how that's done. So I'll save this. Save. Okay, so that's that one. Then the next one, before we add this to the app, we'll go and create that data source and the widget for the column chart of the inventory values. So we'll add a new data source. And again, I'm going to do a freeform SQL statement. And I'm going to call up my pre-prepared SQL statement. This one looks a little easier. So I'll go to the preview. I'll just show you this is the different classes and their value. So we'll save that. Inventory values by class. Tag that as video and save. Here it is here, and we'll add the widget, column widget to that. So the data field is going to be the value. And then the label field is the class. And I'll go to the UI, give this a title of current inventory values by class. I'll just say inventory values by class. We'll take the word current off there. And let's see, anything else I want to change there? Nope, I think that looks good. So we'll save that. Inventory values, save that. Okay, now we have our pie chart and the column chart. Now let's go to the app and add those in. There's our warehouse dashboard app that we got started earlier. And so I want those two charts to be up one above the other on the left side. So what I need to do is first add a vertical layout widget. So that's called a utility widget, and that's add the vertical layout. I'm just going to call it charts. And I'll bring that utility widget for the vertical layout up and to the left. Okay, here it is here. And now I'm going to add the two widgets in there. Pie chart first. And in order to add the chart to the utility widget, I have to hit this add widget button. Okay, we'll add it in here. There we go. So now we have the pie chart on the top and the column chart on the bottom. And I'm just going to work on cleaning up these margins. So the left margins, I'm going to put a margin of 8 around everything. So the left is 8, bottom will be 4, so 4 and 4 there. And the right I'll make 4, and the top I'll make 8. Okay. Okay, so I have all the margins set now, so you can see I have an equal amount of space around the entire, around all the different widgets, so it looks nicer. The only other thing that this differs from is that I think the chart should take up less width here, and the grid should have more space. So we'll edit the grid, and I just want to make that a 2 flex. So now the charts will take up about 1/3 of the space and the grid will take up 2/3 of the space. So let's save this and see what it looks like. Go back to our app and I'll reload it. So as it stands now, I can see all these different charts, and when I click on anything, nothing happens. So the next part will be to add 3 new data sources and 3 new widgets that will be tied to actions or behaviors that will happen when we click on these existing charts. So work on that now. So let's go back to the completed app and take a look at that for a moment. And so when we click on each one of these 3 widgets here that's showing on the screen, we get 3 additional widgets. Like for example, if I click on this pie segment, you'll remember from the beginning of the video, this is the individual orders that go along with that. So these are the orders that are late. So we're going to create the data source and the widget for this grid. And then we're going to go over here to this one, upcoming shipments. If I click on one of these orders, I see the individual line items. So we'll create the data source and widget for this one. And then when I click down here on a column, I'm going to get the a line chart of the inventory value over a 12-month period comparing current and previous year. So we're going to do 3 data sources for these 3 widgets, and then we're going to do the 3 widgets, and then we'll add them all into the app at the end. So in this case, we're going to do all 3 of them at one time. So let's jump back to Nitro App Builder and get started. So go back to data sources, and we're going to add a new data source. This is another one where I'm going to do a free-form SQL statement. And this one's going to be for the pie chart, the one in the upper left. When I click on that, I'm going to get a grid pop up. And I already have an SQL statement for that one. This is going to be the shipped orders by the performance status, whether it's late, on time, or early. So I paste that in and I'll do the preview. And we can see here, this looks good because this is individual order records, and you can see on time, on time. So most of these are on time. I'll just page down here and see there's one that's early. Okay, this looks pretty good. So we'll click save. All right. So we'll save this. And then we will immediately put the widget on there. It's going to be a grid widget. In this case, I want to select all the columns, but I really don't need the result column. You might think that's counterintuitive, but when I click on the pie chart, I'm going to be clicking on a specific result, like whether it's late. So I don't need to show that it's late in the column because I'm going to be limiting the entire result to late orders, for example. So we do not need that one in the grid. Okay, so let's work on some alignments here. Oh, let me just make sure I have these in the right order. And the destination, and then the number of lines, order value, and the result. Okay, so we have them in the right order, and I'm going to fix these labels. Okay, I have all the labels, column headings fixed up now, so I'm going to work on alignments. So the scheduled date, I want to be centered, and we'll center the order number, center this date. Customer name, we can leave left justified. The number of lines, we can center that. And the value, we're going to put some formatting option on here for whole numbers with a comma, with a leading $sign on there. Okay, so I'm going to bring this up and check and see what this looks like in the preview. That looks good. So now we'll move on to the configure. We'll allow the user to resize and move. And for paging options, put the page size to 100. We're not going to do a search, but we'll go to the data section here. And we'll allow for a download. And we'll save that. Okay, save that. Okay, perfect. So we have our first data source, and we have the grid that goes along with that. Okay, the next data source we're going to create is the one for looking at the line items. When we click on the main grid from the main page, we're going to click one of the orders and see its line items. We're going to do the data source wizard in this case. So we'll do demo ord D for the detail file. And then we're going to link that to the demo PMAST, the product master file, so we can get the product's description from that. And we'll join that by item number, product number to item number. It's different names in the files, but it's the same thing. And we'll go to columns, and we're going to choose the line number, the item, the quantity, the price, and we want the description from the product master. We also want the class and the unit of measure. Okay, let me just double check this. Okay, that looks good. We don't need any filters or grouping, so I'm going to jump right to order by, and we're going to order by the line number. So preview that. Okay, so what we're looking at here is just individual line items from the order, and we've linked it in so we can see the product description and get the product class and unit of measure and some other important info to go along with the line items. So we'll save that. And we'll go and create the widget right off of that immediately. That's going to be another grid. I'll select all. And then I'm going to rearrange a little bit here. We're going to do line number first, then item, then the description, unit of measure, and finally price at the end. And let me take a look at these labels. We'll fix these labels up so they look nicer. Okay, I got the labels fixed up. And now I'm going to look at alignments. So the line number, will center the line number. Item number be left justified, description left justified, class will center that, order quantity is right justified. Okay, rest looks good. Again, on my price, I'm going to put this formatting for whole numbers with commas and put a leading $sign on that. And let me just bring this up and double check everything looks good. Unit of measure, I think I'm going to center that. I think that would look better centered. Okay, looks good. So now we'll go to configure. I'm going to choose some options here that I typically do on all. I don't need any paging on this one because this is just customer order or line item for a particular order. There are not going to be that many line numbers in there. And search, I don't really need a search on this one, so I'm going to leave that inactive. And the data, I will allow a download on this though, in case somebody wants to download the individual line items. And we don't need to put a file name. It can just default to whatever it is. All right, so let's save that. And we'll do save. Okay, so we have one more data source and one more widget to do. The last one is going to be for that funky line chart. So when we click the inventory value column in the lower left-hand corner, and it comes up with that line chart for the inventory value history. So on this one, I also have a funky SQL statement, which is this one. It's a long one. I'm going to just copy it and paste it in over here to entering a freeform SQL statement. Take a look at the results. And here we can see for each particular class and month, so that's month 1, month 2, month 3, this is my data for the current and previous year's inventory values in those particular months for the product classes. This is chemical, and if we keep scrolling down, we have component and so forth. So let's save that by class. And we will create a widget right from that. Now this one is going to be a line chart. So we have 2 data points on this one. We're going to have the current year and the previous year. I can select more than one field here for the data. And then the label field is going to be Y0 month. So that'll be the month. Now it's going to look really weird because it's mixing in all of the classes from the data source onto this preview. But when we click on one of the columns, we're going to feed it in a class name, and it will limit it to just that one particular class. And in the actual application, it'll look much nicer. It won't be all these squiggly lines. But in reality, this looks correct to me for the preview. So let's go to the UI. The label title, we'll call that period. And you can see down here, this will say period 1, 2, 3, 4, etc. And we'll put a legend on at the bottom. And the legend will indicate the color, the current year is the green color and the previous year is the blue color. Okay, that's it. So we'll save this. Okay, so now we're done creating data sources and we're done creating widgets. We have everything we need. So we'll go into the app. So before I add these to the app, let's just jump back to the completed app again. And I just want to point out one thing. When we click on this one, we're getting a pop-up window, right? When we click on this one, we're getting a pop-up window. But when we're clicking down here, we actually get a whole new page. It's called a different section. So I'm going to add that in first. So over here is where we add an app section, and we'll call that trends. That's the inventory value trend. You can call this anything you want. It's just a section name. And then we'll add the inventory value history line chart to that section. So that one's in that section. And then I'll just go back to main, and we will add the other two widgets. These are the only two widgets that are not used in this app already. And we're just going to add both of those as a pop-up. So that's the first one. Any widget that's added as a pop-up will just show down here on this line. So I'll go ahead and add the last widget. And this one we want to add as a pop-up as well. So we're adding 3 new widgets on this pass. There's 2 pop-up widgets. And then we have the third widget is our line chart in this additional section. So now we have all the widgets on there. I just want to point out something. If I save this, and then I go and run the app. This is our version of the app we're creating. And I'll reload this. So you can see if I click on something here, nothing is happening, right? So the other 3 widgets that I've added just recently are in the application, but we haven't indicated any behaviors to tell the app when we want those to show. In the last section of this video, I'm going to show you how to create all the behaviors that will make those other widgets pop up when we click on things. Plus, I'm going to show you how to add that row menu to jump into order entry. Okay, so back to Nitro App Builder. And we'll go into the app. And we're going to go right into behaviors. And we'll add our first behavior. So I'm going to add the behaviors in stages and test each one of them, because if we make a mistake, it might be difficult to figure out where we had made that mistake. So I like to sort of test as I go. Let me just jump quickly back to the completed one and just show you. This is the one I'm going to work on. So when you click this record, I want it to show the line items for the order that I clicked on, and I want to make it show the order number in the header of that grid pop-up. And then I'm also going to add this jump into order entry. So we're going to do a couple different behaviors for this one, and let's do it. Okay, so that is the app section, and that is the upcoming shipments list. This is the widget that we're going to click on. So the first thing we want to do is add the definition of what happens when we click on a row. Right now, there's no action. So if I choose my options here, what I want to do is filter a widget. So I want to filter the content of another widget. And okay, so which widget do I want to filter? Well, it's the customer order line items. That's the one that I want to pop up. You can see here that is a pop-up. So that's the one I want to choose. And how do the data sources relate to one another? Well, it's by the order number. So the order number in the one widget has to match the order number in the other widget. And then I'll choose to update the order title. And the title will be, and then we'll display the order number. So there we go. That'll be a replacement value for the order number. And I'll save that. Okay, so here's the first behavior that I have. It'll filter the widget. It'll automatically show that widget because it's defined as a pop-up. And then it'll filter its content to just the line items for the order that I clicked on. The other thing I want to add to this is that jump into order entry. So for there, I want to add a row menu button. Okay, so on this upcoming shipments list, I'm going to add a row menu button, and I want to call it, okay, that'll be what shows on the button. Okay, so there's the row menu, and there's my button that I have on it. And what happens when I click that button? Well, right now, nothing, because it says no actions. Click on the menu to add an action. So we'll add an action to this button, and we're going to launch an app, right? Because we want to launch the simple order entry app. So launch app, and then we'll choose the application. So these are all the applications that we can jump into. And we want to choose simple order entry. But you know what? Oh, there it is. Simple order entry. There you go. So now the optional parameters that I have to pass in when I call simple order entry, I have to tell it what order number I'm choosing so that it can automatically go to that order. So I already know simple order entry app is expecting an order parameter. So you say order equals, and then you can do the replacement value by clicking there, order number. So the app that you're linking to has to be set up to accept this input parameter, and I know simple order entry is, so I know this is how it works. All right, so let's save that. All right, now on click of the jump into order entry button, we will launch the app called simple order entry. Now I'm going to save this and test it. Like I said, I want to test this in stages to make sure it's working as I go. And let's go back to our app that we're working on. Now refresh it. And let's see, when I click on an order, do I get the line items? Yes, excellent. And I'm also getting the title at the top. And let's just check another one. Yep, okay. So that looks good. I have a download button here. Everything looks great. All right, so next let's add the grid that will pop up to show the orders that go along with this pie grid. And so jump back to Nitro App Builder, go back into the app, behaviors. Okay, so now the pie is here. So what happens when we click on it? Right now, no action. So we're going to filter a widget. And this time we're looking for the shipped order by performance, right? And we're going to link into there based on the result, right? So the result is like the on time or the late or early, and how that links to the grid was result. We named these the same field. They don't have to be the same name, but we named them the same. So it's result equals result, and that'll be the performance indicator. Okay. So then we'll update the widget title. Our widget title should be something like the result. So like, for example, this could be on time, and then we can say orders for, and we can maybe put the year. So it could be like late orders for 2018, early orders for 2018, etc. So save that. Okay, now we'll save this and we'll test it out before we continue on. Let's refresh. Reload. And when we click on there, okay, so now, excellent. So it looks like I could have laid this out a little better. If I go into the widget, you can see my columns are not wide enough to show this data properly. But I could go back into the widget definition for this and move these columns around a little bit to clean that up. But I won't do that right now. But that's really the only thing wrong I see here. Otherwise, it looks really good. The data looks correct, and it's behaving the way I expect. All right, so lastly, save the best for last. When we click on one of these bars that represent the inventory value by class, we want to go to that entirely other section to show that fancy line chart. So let's add that now in behaviors. Go into the app. Behaviors. All right, so when we click on this inventory value column chart, what do we want to happen? So we want several things to happen, actually. First of all, we want to filter the widget with the correct data. So the one we're going to filter is the inventory value history line. And how that is linked is by the class. So we're linking those two things by the class. And then we'll update the widget title to say, and we'll put the name of the class. Okay? Year-over-year comparison for class. Okay. That looks good. All right, so because this thing we're filtering lives in a different section, we also have to add a special hide show action. So we're going to hide and show. So when that is clicked on, what are we going to have happen? We want to hide the main section, and we want to show the trends section. So to the user, it'll look like the inventory value line history chart is coming forward. That's exactly what's happening. We're hiding the main section, showing the trend section. Okay, so we'll save that, and we can see that here. That's now a behavior. So we're filtering the line chart with the correct data, and then we're hiding the main section and showing the trends section, which contains this You can see this section down here, the trend section. This is the one that will come forward. Well, let's just save that and see if it'll work. See how it looks. I'll refresh it. Okay, so we'll refresh it, reload frame, and when I click on one of these, okay, perfect. It looks like I might have missed an I know on the on the completed product here, if I look at this one, I have these little dots here, and those are not showing on mine, so I think there's an option I think I missed on there, but that's no big deal. But it's a little bit of a difference there between the original and the one we created. But it looks like it works, except look what my problem is now. So I'm here on this line chart, but I have no way of getting back, okay? So we have to add a button here that tells the app I need to go back to the main section. So let's add that in, and then we'll test it one more time, and then we'll be done. Let's go back to behaviors. Okay, so while we're on the trends section, I want to add a button to the top of the trends section. I don't need any text on the button. I'm just going to put arrow. So we'll choose the left arrow. No, just choose that one. Okay, so there's the left arrow there now, and then on click, right now there's nothing, but we're going to do hide show widgets, and so when we go back, we will hide the trend section and we will show the main section. Let's save that, save again, save the app. Let's go back to our dashboard and reload it. Okay, so now when we click there, look at this, the back button is over here. Okay, I forgot to say I wanted it on the left side. That's really a bad place to have it. But while it's there, let's make sure it works. Yes, it does work. Okay, so let's go back to the Nitro App Builder. Go back to behaviors, and then we go back to the button. And see the position here is on the right, that's the default. I'll make that left. And we'll test it one more time. Let's refresh. Okay, so now when we go in here, we have the back button. Yes. Excellent. So that's it. We've replicated the entire warehouse dashboard example. Thanks for watching.